On Friday, it was the highest death toll so far across the entire country, where more than 2,000 Americans died in just that one day. The total death toll is now well over 21,000. And even when we hear the good news from New York, from Governor Cuomo, about the overnight death toll being just 758, that comes on a string of horrific death tolls. Last Friday was the record, 731, but since then we've seen it go to 779, 790, and on through the high 700s. So when he's talking about all those deaths are taking a toll, it just keeps coming in these high 700s. Yet at the same time, those numbers do give us some hint of hope because they're plateauing. They mightn't be dropping by very much or going up and down just a little bit each day, but the point is it's 700 and something, 700 and something, 700 and something. The whole time, New York's been trying to chase the apex of the curve of death. Well, it turns out it's a plateau. Now, at the same time, less people are being hospitalised, as you said. Less people are going into the ICU and less people are being intubated. So that plateauing death toll and these falls in those other measures actually suggests that there might be some hope, that perhaps New York is getting ready to turn the corner. We can only hope so, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the time when any kind of news is good news, even though so many people are still losing their lives every day. And it's interesting too, Michael, it's not just the US, but it's also Spain and Italy. Even though the daily death toll is still very high, there is something of a similar trend with all of them put together. The same with the UK as well, mind you. But the expert who fronts the White House coronavirus task force, he's just said lives were lost because the administration was slow to react. Here is a bit of that from Dr. Fauci.
You could logically say that if you had a process that was ongoing and you started mitigation earlier, you could have saved lives. Obviously, no one is going to deny that. But what goes into those kinds of decisions is complicated. But you're right. I mean, obviously, if we had, right from the very beginning, shut everything down, it may have been a little bit different. But there was a lot of pushback about shutting things down back then.
OK, well, on that, Michael, what do we know about any missteps?
Well, Dr. Fauci, as you say, is the face of the White House coronavirus task force, and he's responding to bombshell reporting today in the New York Times that traces a timeline of missed opportunities, starting way back in January. I mean, the Secretary of Health personally warned President Trump a couple of times. His senior trade advisor wrote a memo that said this is going to hit us and hit us hard. It's going to kill a lot of people and it's going to cost us trillions of dollars. Then the experts that are gathered, including Dr. Fauci, and in mid-February, they collectively decided it's time to go into lockdown. So they were waiting for President Trump to fly back from India to tell him that. In the meantime, one of the doctors went on TV and gave the warning herself that we need social distancing. Well, the president hadn't been warned about it. So by the time he landed, he was so furious, he refused to meet those doctors and then put the vice president in charge of the task force. We then had 3 long weeks where we had no social distancing in place. So it's like the great lost 3 weeks. And Dr. Fauci is just confirmed the reporting.
Yeah, interesting too. Last week, I think it was, that Donald Trump started shifting blame towards the World Health Organization, saying they were slow to act. So there's probably going to be a bit more of that in the days and weeks ahead. But Michael, finally, is there any news on when and how might America reopen its economy?
Well, again, that is the great question. The answer is going to be slowly. The experts are saying it should be, a slow rollout, perhaps even targeted, where they can try to open here in this area and try to open here in that area, because they absolutely suspect or expect that when they do start reopening, there's going to be another surge in cases. It's just that they feel that they'll be better prepared for it this time, and they can open up and they can close back down. But it's certainly not going to be a light switch. And if you remember, President Trump just a few weeks ago was saying, he'll reopen by Easter. which in America is today. We're certainly not open. He's now looking at the possibility of May 1 to reopen. But, you know, certainly this is not going to be easy. Here in Los Angeles, our shutdown has been just extended to May 15. In New York, they say they're going to have to go about it very, very cautiously. And even President Trump himself says that, you know, he's contemplating all this today. He said, deciding when to reopen the economy is probably going to be the greatest decision of his entire presidency. So no one's taking reopening lightly, and it's certainly not rushing upon us anytime soon.